Hey there, all my Rotation 411 Astrology Initiates. So today we're going to continue with Lecture 4. I don't have much battery left, and I'm going to chew my gum today because I just want to do something different. But if you're one of my regulars that is following the whole series, because I know there's at least a handful of you, maybe somewhere in there, just comment, because I think because it's so hard for me to get on Fridays usually. So I think if I do, it's just going to be like Gum Friday. But if it's driving you guys crazy, if it's like too obnoxious, I just want to do something different. But for some people, it could be off-putting. Just write in the comments, "No gum, please," and we'll just leave it at that. I won't take offense to it, because especially for those of you that are tuning in, I don't want to. You're the people that I want to accommodate, because this information is probably most valuable to you. So we're going to get back into the book and see if a few of you join us. I'm sure we'll get some hellos. We usually do. So, audience, what about Pluto in the 12th house? Now, we've been reading lecture 4. There's 7 lectures in this book, The Outer Planets and Their Cycles. So, if you want to see where we're at, and I'll kind of summarize as we kind of pick back up what she was talking about. We were talking about Saturn in the 12th, Uranus in the 12th, Jupiter in the 12th, and how this might affect somebody. So kind of like the mid to outer planets in the 12th. So now we're asking about Pluto in the 12th. So if you want to hear about Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter, then the link is for the playlist is in the description box below. It'll be the outer planets and their cycles, lecture 4, part 3, I believe. This is part 4. So it'll be part 3 if you want to hear about that. Okay, what about Pluto in the 12th? Liz Green says, I think this has something to do with sensitivity to the dark in the collective. It's rather paranoid. Now, really quick, I didn't even see this question yesterday, but I did touch on my opinion also of Pluto in the 12th if you go to that video, and I'll pin it in the comments in the playback for the playlist. But again, it'll be lecture 4, part 3. I talked about what I think about Pluto in the 12th, so be sure to check that out if you want to know more about this. And also, like and subscribe. It helps. I appreciate. We've been getting some new subscribers, so I really appreciate all of you for that. The more I don't really, I just like to come on here and talk about astrology with you guys and get the information out there. Hi, Just Tube. So, really, you don't have to spread the word about the channel. I like to kind of work behind the scenes, so to speak. But if you want to spread the word about the database, there's a really good affiliate program. So check out moonmatch.love. They have a really good annual sale for the holidays. You get 50% off just to enter and see if you have any matches. So definitely check out moonmatch.love. And if you ever want a personal reading from me for astrology or tarot, it's rotation411.com. But other than that, I just appreciate you all joining me. It looks like we have a good crowd. Hi, Theron. Thanks for the love. Hi, SK Song. Okay. Kind of went up on me there. Romeo. Romeo is Inkulami. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. All right. So let's see here. We're talking about Pluto in the 12th today. And like I was just saying, if you want to know what I think about Pluto in the 12th, it's the description for the link for the playlist to this series, The Outer Planets and Their Cycles book study, is in the playlist below. It's in lecture 4, part 3. This is lecture 4, part 4. You can find it there. So, it seems like a lot more of you just kind of joined. So let me just kind of repeat this. I think this has something to do Pluto in the 12th. I think this has something to do with sensitivity to the dark in the collective. It's rather paranoid. Now, I said it's very intuitive and perceptive, but planets in the 12th house tend to lie about very unconsciously. One isn't aware of carrying them most of the time. So she's saying that because the 12th house is Neptune ruled, and Neptune can be a little bit deceptive, that sometimes with planets in the 12th, this can cause maybe what do they call it? Like habitual, compulsive liar, maybe, and they don't even realize it, because they're so in the imagination with whatever energy has to do with that planet. I would say also, I think with the 8th house, because that's known secrets, 8th house planets are people that are going to be good liars or very premeditated liars. And they might learn over the course of their life, if they have heavy 8th house or Scorpio energy, the value of the truth. They can definitely see the truth, so you can't really lie to them. So with the 12th, it's going to be they're going to be a little more oblivious. And I would say not only with planets in the 12th are you going to maybe lie and not realize it, or sort of tell on yourself, um or just sort of mix imagination, it's like you gaslight yourself type of thing would be a strong 12th house or Neptune contacts, because it's like you believe it's the truth or you remember it a certain way, and then someone could tell you it didn't happen that way, but you actually do remember it that way, but sometimes you don't. So it can get a little confusing. That's Neptune rules confusion and deception, so it can be a little bit self-deceptive. So she's saying they can lie without even being aware of it, so it's almost like you could probably be easier gaslit. So that would be what you have to overcome, where eighth house sort of secrets and lies would be more about, I said quote unquote, for those of you who have a lot of Pluto energy, so I don't scare you off. Uh, you know, um, it would be more like, okay, I know I'm doing this, and um, maybe it's for the greatest good, at least in my opinion. But in the 12th house, it's going to be like, oh, I didn't even realize that I have a lot of my Mercury's in Pisces, so it's like you guys follow along. It's some of you have a hard time following me because sometimes I kind of mix things up or whatever. And, that's just Neptunian Piscean energy. It can be a little unclear and vague, but it also is grasping at things that, you know, are connected to pretty much all of creation, I would say, but that sounds a little grandiose. The spiritual side of our beings, 12th house people kind of intuitively know. So it's like, if we don't want to go into like, what's true and what's false, that's 12th house, right? Like, is there really a spiritual realm or not? That's 12th house matters right there. Jupiter, the dogma, we have to channel this into a religion and control it. And, I don't know. But anyways, okay. I'm just going on a weird tangent. So it's rather paranoid. Planets in the 12th house tend to lie about very unconsciously. So I think when she says lie about, she means lie very unconsciously. One isn't aware of carrying them most of the time. A 12th house Pluto is very open to the primitive drives in the collective, which are, as you may imagine, not always pleasing and attractive, right? That's like I say too, when you have that kind of intuition. I can't remember what I was referring to it in regards to myself, but sometimes when you have that kind of like eighth house intuition and you just know people's secrets right when you meet them, um, it's like you have to learn not to judge them. So I think that's what she's kind of saying here about 12th house intuition. Like, you sometimes you realize things about people that you're like, they would never write that in their diary, but you kind of pick it up. Okay, well, the sun and the moon are not planets either, just tube. They're luminaries. But in astrology, we group a lot of asteroids and all of that into the category of planets. So just to make it quicker. But Pluto is not an asteroid nor a planet. So yes, he's sort of standalone and he's quite powerful. Cool. All right. So, but usually there's only a vague sense of unease around crowds or a fear of groups. Pluto has a tendency to erupt, however, and then it can be very disturbing because you may have a bad attack of agoraphobia or claustrophobia, or people suddenly become very threatening when there are more than 3 of them in a room. Or the dark element floods the ego and the person begins to behave in a very dictatorial or explosive fashion. So I guess she's saying people with Pluto in the 12th, they could be just like fine for the most part around crowds, and then all of a sudden just need to get away from them, and just kind of blow up as sort of like inadvertent. They realized it too late and now they're lashing out type of thing. If a person, and I told you guys, I do feel like Pluto in the 12th is a very psychic placement. So I could see how that could happen if you've got a huge crowd around you and you're picking up on all of their energies at once, right? That would be very stimulating at the least. If a person with Pluto in the 12th spends a lot of time around groups, he is liable to pick up the unconscious undertow, especially if there's a lot of repressed aggression or resentment in that group. Then the person will suddenly erupt and start behaving badly because he's acting out all the emotional murk that everyone else has sat on. And of course, he gets blamed and feels terrible because something just came over him. I've noticed this particularly with groups which are very civilized and good and nice and full of well-motivated, helpful people. Planets in the 12th house smell out everything that is not revealed, which is being carried around by the group. And Pluto in particular will pick up the primitive. It was, there was something about, I was watching a documentary, and I have to be careful about this subject. About I've been, for some reason it picked up on my algorithm, so I've been watching the Scientology stuff again. So if you are a Scientologist, I hope I don't offend you, but I had watched the whole Leah Remini thing and everything like that. And I lived in Los Angeles for a long time. So I actually went down to the Celebrity Center because I was really curious, like, oh, there's this diagnostic thing that can tell you, like things about yourself, right? That's all up my alley, anything, like that. And they were Jenna Miscavige, who's the lead of his um the lead of Scientology's niece. She has a channel now, so I was kind of listening to that. And it's crazy because I went down there and I was like, I can't afford the courses. I guess I'll just add my tidbit on it here randomly. And at the time, and they're like, oh, well, we'll get you credit cards. And I'm like, oh, no, no. Um, and so why am I bringing this up? So it was just crazy because they send this letter out, right, that you're a when they thought I would sign up and I didn't, and then I quit responding to them, they sent me like this really nasty letter. And I had just like gone in and done the initial sort of, like, I don't even think I did the orientation. I don't know if I watched the video, but just sort of I was trying to figure it out because I've studied all world religions, and this I couldn't make grasp what this was. I'd been into like a Christian Science bookstore, so I was trying to differentiate like the difference between the two. And in Hollywood they have Scientology like tables everywhere, and I was watching this video with her, and she was saying, this will tie in a little to the what the book is saying here, but she was saying, they disguise it as like diagnostics, like health science, and so you wonder if it's Scientology, and it's all this, they kind of lure you in. So when I just quit responding, they sent me like this really bad letter about how I'm this terrible person. They call them suppressive people, and it was like I hadn't been in the organization, so to me it was very cutting. So I can't even imagine like someone that actually is trying to escape and doesn't know anything different in the world, because I'm a very strong, bold Aries independent, like, and it was so like just it ripped me apart, and they didn't even know me at all. And so the point of what I'm saying here is, um well, my neighbor ended up just kind of what happened with that. I was like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, never go back there again, or I'll never talk to you again. And I'm like, what? And he got really mad about it because we didn't live too far from there. So he'd experienced, I guess, in his past. But I guess that's what they'll do. They'll make you cut other people off. So he was kind of getting ahead of that, sort of, to wrap it up. But my point is when we're talking about Pluto in the 12th is spirituality. I lost most of you, I think. But and so if say I mean if we were to look at somebody like like the lead of that church's chart, or any maybe leader of some type of cult, we might not be surprised to find Pluto in the 12th by the way that she's describing it, being very intuitive about what people need and stuff, but then like raging out on them, because I've heard rumors about that in that, organization. So, you know, that's kind of that Pluto in the 12th, the way she's describing it, kind of reminds me of the things that I've heard about the current head of that organization. But I'm not saying anything about it. I just thought, well, we're bringing it up. Now's the time I'll share my experience with it. Probably should be like a separate video, but I'm not trying to like blast it out there because they're very intimidating, and I don't need them after me. Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't give me quite the right number, but like it'll say no one, and then I'll be like, are you here? And someone's like, yes, I'm still here. So but it goes up and down the whole time. So all right, so getting back to this, so the person can flood the ego if there's too many energies around them, and they can begin to behave in a very dictatorial or explosive fashion. Now, that was the other thing that kind of triggered that thought, is she's saying like if these are people that hang out, in even very like polite groups of society, right? And that's what reminded me, that's why I went on the tangent about Scientologists, because they're all very proper and polite, right? So, but yet behind closed doors, anyways, you hear other things about that. So in that letter they wrote me was definitely very telling. So anyways, if a person with Pluto in the 12th spends a lot of time around groups, he is liable to pick up the unconscious undertow, especially if there's a lot of repressed aggression or resentment. Then the person will suddenly erupt and start behaving badly because he's acting out on all the emotional murk that everyone else has sat on. And of course, he gets blamed and feels terrible because something just came over him. I have noticed this particularly with, very good and civilized, well-motivated groups, helpful people. Planets in the 12th smell this out. Okay, so we already read this part. There's another interesting area connected with the outer planets, which I would like to talk about now. This deals with the qualities of masculine and feminine, which they represent. The outer planets, when they are experienced as images in dreams and fantasies, have a very mythical cast. Venus, for example, is a warm, human, accessible woman, the Empress in the tarot, right? And will often wear the face of someone that you love. But Neptune and Pluto are not human and accessible. Their collective and their images are very impersonal and archetypal. They might be the Virgin Mary or the terrible dragon. Those are images which are universal to mankind and don't bear the personal stamp of one's own individual experience and feeling. I think we are all affected in terms of our images of male and female by the kind of parents we had. A woman's first experience of men is, of course, her father, and her gradually developing image of the masculine is in part colored by what kind of father she had. This means not only how he behaved, but what he was underneath, his unconscious life as well. The first woman a man meets is his mother, and his image of the feminine is strongly colored by the maternal experience. You can also say that, when he's born, he meets his mom. You can also say that a woman will model her femininity in the beginning after her mother, and a man will model his masculinity after his father. This is an unconscious process, and it happens when we are very young. There's also a component in these images of masculine and feminine, which is highly individual and doesn't spring from the environment or the parents. This is what is in your own birth chart. The sun and the moon, and Venus and Mars describe to a great extent what our own individual experiences of male and female are inside and out. Couldn't have said it better myself. I definitely preach that. One thing I will say though is, I was telling you guys, I've told you guys a few times if you've been following along, that I see, and I've seen this at least in a couple of men's birth charts, that their father or mother's Mars will be sitting with the sun's Venus, right? So right there, if you think about it, it's like, okay, so the sun, whose Venus is conjunct the mother's Mars, it's almost like I do think the parents are still having their influence. And Venus and Mars and the sun and moon are representing, and very much represent, the father in astrology, just as much as Saturn or even Jupiter sometimes does. More so, well, more so it's Saturn and the sun that we would equate with the father, but because he's the kind of man who's going to have the values, not necessarily going to have like the authoritarian rule of her father, like Saturn, or maybe the identity of her father, like the sun, which she's going to more take on. Her masculine that she integrates in herself is going to be in the sun sign. That's of her father. So I noticed it for me. My Jupiter sits with my grandpa, my maternal grandpa's son. And he was like the main man in my life, probably like the most solid man that gave me the best values for choosing a spouse. Like he was married to my grandmother for 52 and a half years. That's something that I've always looked up to and admired about him, you know? So that, when it comes to what I'm looking for in a spouse, Jupiter marriage, it's more so an alignment with him, who was there every day and held the fort down, than my father. And my parents are divorced, so that's a different masculine things that I learned from my father. But the ideal, Jupiter ideals, is with my grandfather. So I do think that even though she's saying we could take, just wash away the whole conditioned experience of the actual real mother and father, I think that we can see the real mother and father, not only in the IC and MC, which we talked about yesterday in part 3 of lecture 4, but we can see Venus and Mars, the sun and moon, and how they're aligning with the mother and father as well. These two components overlap. There is a mystery in that. So she's talking about the sun and moon, Venus, Mars. because what you have in your own birth chart, I'm going to substitute horoscope for birth chart. I've said that a few times too if you're following along. To me, a horoscope is your future transits, your birth chart is your birth chart. So, because what you have in your own birth chart belongs to you and is part of your own pattern of development. But often the parents are described very specifically, so as if there were a coincidence of inner and outer images. So your experience of mother through the moon and Venus was and the 10th house is not only your own, but also your mother's, right? And I told you guys my mother's ascendant, or my mother's midheaven 10th house is my ascendant. A lot of you, well, okay, anyways, your experience of father through the sun and Mars in the 4th house is not only your actual father, but the father principle in yourself. I don't know that Mars necessarily represents the father. The sun, I would say the sun, Saturn, and Jupiter, the way I read, would more represent the father, the paternal influences, because Mars is the bad boy. Mars is your drive. Mars might even more be your rebellion against your father, whether you're a male or female, like the masculine within you, unless you really emulate what he did down to a T. So I don't know. I haven't seen, what did I say? I said it was the mother and the father's Mars conjunct those boys' Venuses. So I haven't seen so much that Mars represents the father. But anyway, in my own practice. But let me know what you guys think if you've seen that or if you've seen it in your own birth chart or anything. In the comments, you could let me know. Your experience with father through the sun and Mars in the 4th house is not only your actual father, but the father principle in yourself and your image of father in the world. The women and men in one's life, whether mother or sister, or nanny or adolescent love, or husband or wife, bear the stamp of the qualities which are there in the chart in the beginning. This is the personal aspect of the image of masculine and feminine. There's also a collective component to these images. There is a level where a universal experience of man and woman lies below the highly distinctive individualized one. We each have our own personal attractions and dislikes and tastes in the matter of what qualities of male and female we encounter. One man might please me while another will repel me. None of us fall in love with everybody. There's a boundary line, just as there is a line drawn on the map of the mountains, which I put on the blackboard at the beginning. Below that line, the distinctive differences start merging, and there are basic archetypal attributes which belong to male and female, which are inherent in the human experience. I was just skimming through to see if I could find the mountains. That was a different mountain one. I don't know. Okay. I think the outer planets are related to these archetypal images, which are very potent and profound and often terrifying. You can meet them in many dreams, and they are far more numinous and disturbing than the dream figures which belong to our personal lives. Sometimes a person will become obsessed with this kind of image, and then he cannot possibly form a relationship with another individual because he is forever looking for the archetypal figure. Kind of reminds me of Jay-Z has a son that's like just wants a DNA test or whatever, and he says, once I just know for sure he's not my dad, that's fine. I can just kind of move on with my life. Even if it's like sealed and no one, and even if I look like a fool, it's just I had this put in front of me for so long, and I'm not making a comment either way, but it's like he has that drive to know the answer, and he can't replace that archetype of the father until he kind of eliminates that one. So he either has to just decide to let it go entirely or get some answers. We are reading The Outer Planets and Their Cycles by Liz Green. Okay. No human being is satisfactory. I saw a rather disturbing film recently called Bad Timing. And the woman portrayed in the film is a very classic anima type, as Jung might describe it. Anima and enema, right? The anima and the animus or whatever. Okay. She's elusive and unpredictable, unpossessable, erotic, destructive, eternally enticing, eternally chaotic. She isn't an individual woman, but an image of the feminine in its most alluring and dangerous form. She's the sort of hysterical, disintegrated anima type that John Fowles writes about in The French Lieutenant's Woman. Some of these works may be, a little before our time. This was written in 1980. You can get it on Amazon for $150. So, okay. It's a film. If a film director manages to successfully portray this kind of collective image, then the film affects people very powerfully. Or if an author catches these qualities, then his book will appeal to a mass reading audience, because the kind of figure is universal in the collective unconscious. She's eternally enticing to men, and many women are caught by her and act her out and lose their own individual souls in the process. Another thing is, it reminds me of Robert Greene's Art of Seduction. It's what's they call it. I've only read this word, but the coquette is like one of the archetypal types of women in there. She's so like one of the examples of it was either a real historical woman or a real literature, like a literary figure, a real. Can you be a real literary figure, a real literary character, like a true story that was either fiction or nonfiction? Anyways, there you go. That's Mercury and Pisces right there. Basically, in that book, he says, like, if a woman holds out on a man forever, like this one woman had all these men like falling at her feet, writing her love letters, giving her gifts, because she just held out on all of them the whole time. And like, she just had no problem doing it, and it just tortured their souls. So that's what I think she's kind of saying here, like how the feminine could be, that's sort of how the feminine could be chaotic or bad. She's not needing a man, and she's just completely in her own beauty to the extent that other people don't even know what to do with it. It's not, there's no balance of masculine and feminine there, right? Also, the archetypal images is, I really want to read A Hero with a Thousand Faces to you guys too. I think I might do that next. It might take a while to get through this one though. And that one's even bigger, even thicker. But when we experience these figures in our lives, then our dialogue about them becomes very predictable. After you have heard a few hundred people describe exactly the same situation, you begin to wonder if isn't a factory hidden away somewhere where these behavioral patterns are manufactured. That's how I feel about the synastry aspects. Like I had a client today, they had Venus square Pluto, and she was not ready to hear it because there's just too much that can bubble up, anger, resentment, jealousy. And so that's the one you don't want to hear from somebody else that is probably not the right person for you, But anyway, but I have seen Venus square and opposite Pluto cause some major damage, including Pluto can be death. So in the tarot, the Towers, Pluto, Scorpio's death. Scorpio's ruled by Pluto. It's not always being born. If it's a real literal death, you can't be born again in the same physical sense, I guess, So that's it, lights out at that point, right? So be very careful of that one if you have it with someone. If you want to see if you have Venus square Pluto or opposite with someone, check out divininemingdatabase.com/stars, like the compatibility report in the menu. The link's in the bio too if you scroll down, but there you can just put in your birth date and someone else's birth date. You don't need the times and the places, and you can see if you have that. But it's anyways, when we experience these figures in our lives, okay. So when you hear the same situation over and over again, that's when you start to go, okay, everybody who has this situation has these synastry aspects together. Okay, that's how I did that. You begin to wonder if there isn't a factory. Okay, the rather hysterical woman I described before is very Neptunian. She isn't the only face of Neptune, but she's a very characteristic one. The compassionate and spiritually redeeming woman is another face of Neptune. and the collective has found its best image of her in the cult of Mary. There are characteristic archetypal masculine images as well. Once again, they are the meat of films. They are the meat of films and novels. The current anti-hero is, I think, a characteristically Uranian figure. He's unpredictable, right? And he pops up and pops out. He might help you one day and then, be against you the next. Uranus is a sort of embodiment of the logos principle. He rules through mind, not through brawn. And often he's so abstract that he becomes a machine or an invisible god. He's the principle of will, cold, clear, decisive, and impersonal. Keyword. He's also the winged god, the creative, aspiring spirit which can't be contained or possessed, but which alights for a while and then goes on his way. And that's the thing. He's electricity, so gotta have a full circuit, and then he still can't be contained. He's always gotta be moving. And he can still be turned off, right? And on. And sometimes the lights flicker on their own. So, it's very unpredictable Uranus energy. Let's see how my battery's doing, because I don't want it to just die on us and us to lose everything. You can see that if a person has Venus strongly aspected to Uranus or Neptune or Pluto, then the experience of love and relationships gets colored by these more mythical images. The ordinary, happy married life that our society upholds is often just not enough for the person, because he is chasing after some transpersonal or mythical experience through love. This is very good for me to know for reading natal birth charts. I can see more how, if I see Venus square Uranus in a couple, I say, it's going to be a great friendship. It's going to be off and on, probably won't last more than 5 years. But if I see it in a birth chart now, I know, okay, uh, you know, you're going to have a hard time settling for something that's not hard to reach, right? Uranus is hard to contain. You're going to maybe want to be, Venus is going to want to be containing it, but stimulated by the excitement of Uranus and yada, yada. Okay. That can cause some problems in one's love life. Archetypal images seem more glamorous than actual people. Of course, the fact that they don't exist in embodied form causes some problems, but the pursuit continues. You can see this problem very often with Moon Neptune or Venus Neptune in a man's chart. He will tend to seek a very idolized image of woman, who is a sort of cross between a siren and the virgin, and who doesn't present him with terrible human foibles like headaches, period cramps, and emotional demands. The mystical vision of a woman is much more enchanting to him than the actual one, in part because it can't be possessed and therefore never disappoints or pushes him into actual life through responsibilities and feelings. I think there's different reasons men do that. I think it's in this book, Linda Goodman, Love Signs. It said like Aries men are the type, because they're the most masculine, that they expect women to just be perfect, sort of like an objectification of them. But I don't know. It's so much more complex because they're very smart too. The crown chakra rules them. So they put a high value on women as well. So I don't see them to be that demeaning. So I think there's different reasons why men might sort of idolize women in an unhealthy way, like to the man's own detriment. But it's not. Sometimes it's an inadvertent consequence of it. Like they actually hold them in high value. So like Moon Neptune, it's like they idolize women. So there with Moon and Neptune, there actually might be a lot of grace and mercy if the woman doesn't live up to the ideal, but it takes some maturity too. Neptune's an outer planet, so it could take them some time to see that clearly, right? Because Neptune is a bit hazy, right? Okay. Oh, it's just funny because I had a review and she's like, a bad review. She's like, she confused me with Neptune. I didn't understand the whole time. I didn't understand. I was trying to explain to her about Neptune. She goes, and it just left me feeling a bit hazy. I was like, so you do understand, okay? All right. Anyways, whatever. Okay. All right. These aspects in both men's and women's charts explain a good deal of the sort of problems that erupt despite the best intentions in relationships. The experience of the collective image is an important and valid one. But it's not very productive when one demands that it be embodied by a single individual. It can dominate the early part of life, and then it's usually justifiable. But pursuit of it in tangible form in later life is often very unhappy and disillusioning and desperate. Sometimes it's a creative form that the image needs, and in many ways, the portrayal of it through films and novels is a way in which both the artist and his audience can have a collective experience, without too many individual lives being shattered pointlessly. At the very least, understanding that these planets describe inner states rather than people can give some meaning to the difficulties that one experiences in relationships through them. The ways in which creative people have given expression to these outer planets is extremely interesting. Goethe is a good example. Goethe is one of my favorites, okay? Because of his creation of Faust, Goethe had a Sun Pluto square in his birth chart. He also had a Scorpio ascendant, so the Plutonian element in the chart is very emphasized. I think Scorpio ascendants make very good writers as well because they're able to stay really focused. I mentioned because Goethe was a writer, I believe, he and a few other things. I mentioned sort of a Renaissance type man. I mentioned Jimmy Carter earlier, who had this same square, and also Margaret Thatcher. Both of these people found political arenas in which to both express and battle with Pluto. But Goethe chose to create a work of art which is truly Plutonian. Faust embodies, well, with my Scorpio and Pluto generation, no wonder I gravitate to some old writer named Goethe, right? Faust embodies the whole spectrum of power and darkness and dismemberment and salvation that are contained in Pluto. I have always thought that Plutonian people never made very good Christians, because Pluto's combination of God and the devil is more akin to Gnosticism or dualism than it is to Christianity. How much Goethe was able to work off through his art and how much he was tormented himself by Pluto, I couldn't say. But he has given us a monumental creation that encapsulates. I need a little sip. My mouth's getting dry there. Okay. But he has given us a monumental creation that encapsulates what I understand to be the conflict of opposites contained in that planet. Another good example. I'm reading too far ahead. The phone might die though. Just a heads up, you guys. But I will be back on Monday, and we'll pick up and finish up lecture 4. Hopefully, we'll be able to finish it by then. It might take two more sessions. Another good example is Chopin. He had the Sun in Pisces and squared to Neptune. Chopin's music, is it Chopin or Chopin, you guys? Music is to me, I think it's Chopin, but then I thought I'd be saying it wrong. Chopsticks, Chopin. Oh. Chopin's music is to me an embodiment of Neptunian pathos and melancholy and longing and delicacy. Wagner is also an interesting example. He had the sun opposite Uranus. The mythology of the ring is thinly disguised political ideology. The gods are degenerate and dying, and I just went and I went ahead and set my. I have a plug-in right here, so my cord reaches. It's just I want to order off Amazon some like we have such old outlets in this house, so I want to order like some of the ones that have like 2-prong to 3-prong with all the little USB things around it, and I haven't got around to it yet. I should have looked on Black Friday. But yeah, so this one it's limited, but I was with my little desk here, I was able to shove the USB thing down there. So now we're golden. We shouldn't run into that problem ever again. All right. Yeah, the phone had died, and then it says it's picking up. It let me resume where I left off, which like the 1 or 2 times I wanted to do that before, it didn't give me the option. Usually I see it when I'm not trying to do it and I have to hit end. So this time it worked out. So we've been going about 40 minutes, so we'll go maybe 20 more minutes here now that we did that. All right, so we left off at Madame Blavatsky. It was the Theosophists who unearthed astrology and dusted it off and brought it back into the modern world. Theosophists are Theosophist means a person that studies God. Theo means God. But anyway, there are any number of excellent examples of well-known people who have expressed their dilemma with an outer planet through creating some artistic or political or psychological vessel through which the energy can be expressed. I mentioned Jung and Freud earlier. The list is endless. I hope this illustrates the way in which the outer planets can seize a person and compel him to follow them, either creatively or destructively, into some kind of wider vision. I don't think that because the sun doesn't aspect Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto, that this possibility is denied a person. There is no such thing as a chart without these planets, and they are going to express through some area of the individual's life. The danger is in not knowing what they want or in trying to shut them out. In other words, the planets, right? Not knowing, what sign they're in, what house they're in, what they're kind of like external forces on you, the outer planets. So what they're kind of, pushing you to do, and if it's for your highest good, in alignment with the other things that you want in life. Because then one tends to become their victim rather than their cooperative vessel. Okay, you guys are coming back now. Yeah, it clicked off for 1 sec. Had to clear my throat really quick, but I've been taking D3, and it's because I gotten sick in like September, and it lasted forever. So I started taking D3, and it's really kicked it. So, anyways, someone has asked if I would comment on the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction and whether this has any bearing on the situation between America and Iran. Now, this is in, or Iran. This is in 1980 again, remind you. Jupiter and Saturn come into conjunction in December of this year, 1980. And she puts, yeah, okay, she put a little star and said that because she published the book in 1982. In around 7 or 8 degrees of Libra. The conjunction continues through January, February, and March, and back and forth during the whole of 1981. So if you were born in 1980 or 1981, you're going to have this, what we're talking about right now, in your birth chart. And Jupiter and Saturn, very interesting together. These are, of course, not outer planets. And in a sense, they don't belong in this conference. So Jupiter's sort of a mid-planet. But everyone seems a bit worried about the conjunction here, so I suppose I should try to sound intelligent about it. One of the things which other astrologers have noted about Jupiter-Saturn cycles is that they coincide with important economic fluctuations such as sudden rises and depressions in the stock market. There's also the curious phenomenon of American presidents dying in office who have been elected under Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions since they have occurred in Earth signs. Let me think really quick. I was thinking I might go grab my astrology software, but Saturn right now, I believe he's in Pisces, and Jupiter's a 12-year right cycle, and Saturn's 29 through all the signs. So I believe Jupiter might be early Gemini. Most of the people I've read for that are having their Jupiter returns like Taurus, Gemini right now. So let's say Jupiter's early Gemini and Saturn is Pisces right now. So we're not having this going on right now. The soonest we would be having it going on 2.5 years, 2.5 years, 2.5 years. It's not very often that this happens because it's going to take at least 2.5 times 3, which would be 6, 7, like 7.5, 6 to 7.5 years before Saturn is even where Jupiter is again. So Jupiter laps Saturn. So I guess it happens every 12 years that Jupiter goes back to where he was. But well, I guess it'd be like 29. I just like to do the math sometimes in my head. So 29 divided by 12 would be like 2 point something. So 2 point like 3333 or something. So you would think that they would conjunct every 2.33 years, but that's not right at all. But Jupiter's going to catch up to Saturn. And so we have Saturn at the very end in Pisces, and Jupiter's sort of in the first, quadrant. He's still hanging around Gemini. So it's probably going to take, we're not going to have a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, I'm going to say for at least 12 years from now. But anyways, all right. I should have just pulled out, with all the effort I just took, I should have just pulled out the astrology software and animated it and seen when it's going to happen. And one thing you have to do, be careful of with Googling those things is, even me as an astrologist, I'll Google, when's the next Saturn, Jupiter conjunction? And they'll say, the next Saturn Jupiter conjunction is going to be in the fall of 2027, like September of 2027. And I'll go, and I'll be telling everyone that for 2 years, yeah, we're gonna have that Saturn Jupiter conjunction. That means this. And then I go look at my astrology software. It's very rare that I do this, but it has happened to me at least 3 to 5 times now, where I Google just real quick to see when an aspect's gonna happen, and the internet really doesn't know, because then I go to my software and it's like, oh no, that's not happening in 2023, that's happening, in or 2027, that's happening in 2048. And then I figure out right then, like, the exact math of it. But maybe Monday I should write a note for myself. I kind of want to look at it now, you guys. I kind of want to pull it up and see when the next Saturn Jupiter conjunction is. So give me 2 seconds. I'm just gonna go grab my software. This little astrology nerd is going to update the book, I guess. Let's see. Let this start up for a second. And then we'll keep reading while I wait for it to load. It's pretty fast now, but I'm going to just look at a chart of, what does it tell me? Well, this gives me New York now, so we'll just do it based on New York time. Animate. I have a couple things too where I can just search Saturn Jupiter conjunction. It's in that matchmaker software. Do I still have that on here? See if I have that on here. Oh. No. Let me do it this way. I can do it on this software. See, this is when it would be nice to screen share with you guys. I really need to try it out on this newer laptop I have. It's very fast. That would be cool, because before I couldn't really do that. Let's see. Where do we do it? It's like we can do search for times using astrological criteria. Yeah. This is how, by the way, I do the birthday search. And the birthday search is not the same as like the Astrology Dating App, where it matches you. You enter your birth details, and then it matches you with who's ever already in there based on their birth details. The birthday search package is actually where I just find a list of the most compatible birthdays for you. And it could be, friends, relatives, or romantic interests, but it's just like you get an email with the whole list for you, like people born in 1982 to 1983 are a good match, or people born in April to May of 1990 are a good match for you. Something like, it has all of that, all the best birthdays for you to get along with according to your birth chart. And some of you, the list is a lot longer than others. Like, I have a Grand Cross in my birth chart, so my list wasn't very long. But then I had a client I did the birthday search for, and she had pages and pages of people that she would be very compatible with. So it's mostly for romantic purposes, but you can still, if you order it, it's on rotation411.com, the birthday search. You can still, when you get it, you can go, okay, well, I want to date people in these date ranges, but also, oh, look, my mom's in that date range and we get along well, or something. And my best friend's in there too. You can kind of see that. So with that being said, I've got this going, but I need to make, I don't know what I was doing here, so I'm like, should I save it? All right, let's see. Save to file. I'm just going to put, something. Testing. Okay. I was testing something. All right. This is so cool. I really wish I could screen share this with you guys. So let's see. I'm going to clear this. We're going to go. We're looking for transiting point or cusp. Jupiter in conjunction with Saturn of transiting chart. I think that's what I want. Oops, crap. I didn't. No, hold on. Gotta add it. Okay, we did. Search. Okay, cool. All right, there's not much here. Oh, okay. So it happened again in 2000 and 2001. Let's see. Start date. We only went to 2010 here. So let's do from 1980 when she's talking about. It doesn't happen very often. To, we'll say January 1st, 2028. So we had, it was exact December 31st, 1980, March 4th, 1981. So if any of you, your birthdays are these days are close, you have this in your natal chart. July 24th, 1981. It left October 14th, 1981. And then it entered again in March 7th, 2000. So it was about 19 years. Okay? And it was exact May 28th, 2000. It left August 6th. This is one of my favorite features, like, on this software. Let's see. So, and then it entered and left all throughout 2000 and 2001. And I can't remember what I have as the orb on this as far as it entering or leaving. But it tells me when it was exact too, like May 28th, 2000. So then it enters. Oh, interesting. So we had Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. Now, we talked about Saturn-Pluto conjunction happened in 2020, right? And there was a stellium there. So we had Saturn-Jupiter conjunction as well in 2020. Before we start getting in the book and what she's saying, 2020 was a big year for most of us, unless we were born after that. It's like no one else is gonna forget it. If you're born in 2022, you may not know what I'm talking about, but I'm not quite sure. It's 2024 right now, in case you're watching this years down the road. So, but you never know. Maybe that will happen. So, so it from August or so from January 25th of 2001. It didn't happen again for 19 more years. So it happens every 19 years. So there's the answer on the math. That's how often Saturn and Jupiter conjunct, and they seem to do a dance for a little over a year. And then it happened in February 25th of 2020. That is really crazy, you guys. I don't even think any of you are in here anymore. But February 25th of 2020, I know it was that Valentine's Day that I believe that I got the vid or whatever it was, or I got really sick. And it was March that everything shut down. So literally the breaking dawn of the 2020 world pandemic was as soon as Jupiter conjuncted Saturn for the first time in 19 years. And coincidentally enough, what was going on in 2001, that was September. Wait, gosh, you guys, I'm so not, hold on, I don't want to make myself sound really ignorant right now or be disrespectful, so I'm going to Google this really quick. Yeah, so 9/11 happened in 2001. I knew, that's what I thought, but I was like, it wasn't 2000, it was 2001, but I just didn't want to be wrong. So they weren't, the last time Saturn and Jupiter were conjunct within whatever orb this is. That's what I should know. Hold on, let me see if I can adjust the orb. I think it's a little deeper that I have to go to adjust the orb. Show advanced options. Yeah, it's like I set that in the deeper in the software. I set what that orb is. So it'd take me a few minutes to change it or find it. But I'm going to say it's probably within a 3 to 5 degree orb that it left. So it could have if my exact is 3 to 5 degrees the way I've set it, it could have still been 5, 6, 7 degrees Saturn conjunct Jupiter. Actually, let's screw it. While I'm in my software playing around here and you guys are popping in and out, I'm just going to look at the date. I'm going to look at, let's go years here. I'm going to look at what the orb was between Saturn and Jupiter on 9/11. Okay, I go 2001. I think I can just type it up here, actually. Okay. Okay, it was in a Saturn conjunct Jupiter. They were pretty far apart by then. Conjunct in 2000. Okay, so that's right. I was making sure I did that part right. So 2001, let me go to months. Yeah, because by 9/11, well, they're still both in Gemini. No, by 9/11, Cancer was moved in, or Jupiter was moved into Cancer. By August, actually, of 2001. But they were both in Gemini. Yeah, okay, so they weren't in, I thought maybe they still, because they're slower moving planets like Saturn, that they might have still been in like a 5 degree orb, but no. So, just kind of going back to the list really quick of when this happens. So it happened in early 2001, and then it happened again exactly when COVID lockdown started in 2020. We had Saturn conjunct Jupiter, and we had Saturn conjunct Pluto at that time, sometime that year. I can click on it, but let me just... So I only went to 2021. Let's see. Look at this chart, February 25th, 2020. So February, so right as the whole world was locking down due to the pandemic in 2020, we had Saturn conjunct Pluto and Jupiter. We had that huge stellium in Capricorn. I remember looking out at it. Mars was there. And Capricorn rules like government and structure. I don't know. Very interesting. Okay, so when she's talking about these, she wrote this book in 1982, and she's talking about this in 1980 about, we started the book, like the first lecture, the intro talked a lot about Saturn conjunct Pluto, and I said, oh my gosh, that was happening in 2020. Now she's getting into Saturn conjunct Jupiter, which also happened in 2020, and I believe it happens every 19 years, so we're good for a minute. And we also have Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years, so technology is just going to be booming. It's the industry to get into, okay? Anyways, I'm personally, like, as soon as this happened, I'm going back to school for more stuff. Okay, all right, let's see here. All right, I don't know if these glasses help me read or not, but they help me with the computer a lot. So, now that I have, like, the battery charger, I could go forever. All right, now, let's see here. So let's just, she says, where were we? So she was saying that this conjunction happened in 1980. It also happened in 2020 and 2000, 2001. The conjunction continues through. Okay. These are, of course, not outer planets, and in a sense, they don't belong in this conference. I disagree with her. I think Saturn is an outer planet, but I will agree with her that Jupiter is a mid planet. But everyone seems a bit worried about the conjunction here, so I suppose I should try to sound intelligent about it. One of the things which other astrologers have noted about Jupiter-Saturn cycles is that they coincide with important economic fluctuations, such as sudden rises and depressions in the stock market. There's also the curious phenomenon of American presidents dying in office who have been elected under Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions since they have occurred in Earth signs. I feel like now you might feel like maybe one U.S. president died while he was in office. I think that's only happened once. I think it was like Roosevelt or something, and then I don't know if I remember around that time frame, and then his vice president took over and I think was elected again. I don't know, but anyways, I think it had to do with the Roosevelts. I'm not a history buff, so if you know the answer, write it below for everyone else, or they can Google it. All right, they really want to know. I think in many ways it might be more relevant. Oh, I guess JFK did pass away while he was in office too, technically, right? Okay. I think in many ways it might be more relevant and interesting in the context of this workshop to talk about the conjunction in relation to the charts of particular countries. Oh, and then there was another one. Okay, maybe, I mean, a lot of them are, you know, red rummed while in office, but I think only one died of natural causes. And was Abraham Lincoln in office when he passed away, or was it after he did his full term? See, these are always Googling. All right. I was not one of those kids, believe it or not, that could memorize. Well, some of you might could memorize all the presidents and their turn. I couldn't memorize all the capitals. Geography is not my strong suit, at all, but yet has a lot to do with astrology. So, anyways, normally when it comes to geography, all I have to do is type in the place, though. That's about all that has to do with geography. And we do astrocartography. I have a package for that if you want me to look at, like, I can overlay the planets over, or your birth chart over a map and tell you, like, what's the best place for if you're looking for love, or you're looking for this, or how's it going to go when you move to this place, and yada, yada, yada. All right. So I think in many ways it might be more relevant and interesting in the context of this workshop to talk about the conjunction in relation to the charts of particular countries. Talking about the meaning of the conjunction would be fascinating, but its effect on specific trouble spots is even more fascinating. So, astrocartography, gosh, I'm just slightly one step ahead of her. So we're going to talk about astrocartography now. So if you want me to do astrocartography on your actual birth chart, I just told you where to go, but we're going to do it on the actual world right now. I'm just looking really quick because I thought there was going to be chapters on some of this stuff that we've already gone over, like the different birth charts. And so maybe the table of contents just refers us to that, more like an index, which is interesting. Oh, yeah, that's very interesting. It's really quick. So when you read the table of contents, it has introduction. I don't know how you guys can see this, and then lecture 1 through 7, and then down here it has illustrations. Now that makes sense. Now it clicks. And then it has the birth chart of each of these people and the age of this and the age of that. And I kept telling you guys, yeah, we're gonna be covering all that after we do all the lectures. And now I just realized, no, these are all included in the lectures because we've already covered pretty much half of them, and we're getting into the birth chart of Israel now and all that, which is down here. And so this is just giving you basically an index of a quick reference. Yeah, so like that map I'm always looking for is page 12. Okay, cool. All right, now we know how to use the book, so we can finish it. Right. Usually the index would be in the back, but there's just a bunch of other good astrology books she recommends in the back, so that's cool. By this publication. Talking about the meaning of the conjunction would be fascinating, but its effect on specific trouble spots is even more fascinating. Usually, if a country's chart is affected by Jupiter Saturn, it will be through the economy, or in the rulership changes, which is the old meaning of Jupiter Saturn, as it was interpreted in the Middle Ages. Something old and outworn is dethroned, and there is a burst of new energy and some chaos before a new, younger thing emerges. The three charts which I think might be worth looking at are those of America, Iran, and Israel. I was also going to talk about Russia's horoscope, which I will do shortly. I'm not an expert in mundane astrology, and my tendency is to look at a country's chart psychologically, in the same way that I would look at an individual's. So I cannot make concrete predictions that will help anybody invest money at the right time. I think there are other astrologers who have made more of a specialty of this field, which is certainly a worthwhile one to examine. And another really cool, astrowin.org, he has a really cool lucky times thing that he made, and you can actually go on there and find the best times for you to gamble, like the best time of day and the best dates. So check that out. All right, if that's something you'd be interested in. But there's also the problem of the accuracy of these national horoscopes, or birth charts. Israel, for example, is given two quite different charts according to the two source books I have looked at. The one which has 10 degrees of Libra rising, which I will be using, is based on the data. Is it data or data, you guys? Because I always say data, and my guy says it's data. No. Yeah, I say database, right? And he says, isn't it database? And then he told me when I go back to school for technology to ask my instructors. He's like, no, I generally don't know which one it is. I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, you're just trying to prove me wrong. All right. Okay. It's based on the data given in the times when the state was proclaimed in 1948. And I think it was proclaimed again around 2020, right? Because I think that's what just happened, right? Okay. This chart appears in Charles Carter's book on political astrology. There's another chart which gives a 1 degree Scorpio ascendant, which has been calculated by the American Federations of Astrologers. I don't know which is accurate. I feel like Libra and Scorpio, aside from how they look, ascendants are kind of similar in a lot of ways. I once heard that Libra is actually, or no, that Sagittarius is a culmination of Scorpio and Libra. Interesting, right? I don't know which is accurate. The same problem occurs with America's chart. I guess that would be true of any quadrant of this, like maybe Gemini is like the good twin is an Aries and the bad twin is a Taurus, or vice versa. And, it's a culmination of Aries and Taurus. And then maybe I never thought of it like this before, but I always put patterns together. So this might be beneficial later for one of you or me. Oh, yeah, that was a little theory I had touched on. Now it makes sense. So it could be, that 1 + 1 is greater than 2. We've got, then it would be Cancer and Leo equating to Virgo. Maybe Cancer's the home and the nurturing, and Leo's, taking care of the self and indulging a little in the fun things, and put those together, and you get a very practical Virgo who wants to get stuff done because there's no play, can't be all work and no play. I don't know, yada yada. Okay, now I'm just getting, my brain starts to get sleepy after a while, and then I lose the whole trajectory. So I think we're gonna leave off here for today because I'm getting a little frazzled out, and we've been going for over an hour now. And intermittent reinforcement and learning is the best way to remember things. So digesting a little at a time is best for you and me. you know yeah, but I do feel like now that we covered a little more today, we may be able to knock out the rest. Oh, it's got California's too in here. That's the end of lecture 4. We'll talk about California. So that's cool to know. This whole time I've been saying we're going to go through all the lectures and then we're going to look at all that other stuff. But no, it's all part of the lectures. So it's a very holistic book. Good job, Liz Green. Thank you. I'm really enjoying it. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I will be back Monday. If you don't see me Monday, it'll be Tuesday at the latest. Sometimes, well, Wednesday's Christmas Eve, so I'll definitely try to get on Monday between now and Christmas. But if for some reason I don't make it on, I'm sending you all very, happy holiday wishes, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, love and light to all the different Kwanzaa, all the different traditions around the world. And yeah, all right. And if you're lonely over the holidays, and especially if you're dating online, be sure to check out moonmatch.love. There's a really good deal for through the end of the year as a Christmas gift to all of you. And if you're watching this after December 2024, you can always use my coupon code rotation411 to get a discount as well. Sending you love and light. Bye bye.